Our next score here is by Patrick, and this is just some beautifully elegant. I'm trying to sort of express it as a bridge between a cinematic style of orchestration and a sort of an elegant, almost like pop classical scoring. Now, I don't mean that as an insult or as a put down at all. There is a specific genre of, crossover is a way of putting it, but there's just a way of kind of, acknowledging the more popular genre in the way that things are put together. And I think that shows that here proudly. So I hope I didn't misinterpret that, Patrick, but I just think that this is beautifully crafted along that genre. Okay, so without saying more about it, let's have a listen to this score, and I think you'll see what I mean by it. Okay, so by my estimation of it that I just expressed. Okay, so let's have a listen. Now, the first thing that you might notice about this score is that Patrick has scored it fairly harp heavy. Okay, however, there is actually nothing wrong with that. It's not really a harp concerto per se. It's not like the harp is out front dominating the proceedings. The harp is actually scored fairly tastefully and as part of filigree. And that is a lesson that I've taught a lot of times in my different courses and videos. And Patrick, seems to be up on that lesson. So whether it's from me or just something, his own approach. Now, I would say, like for some of these chords, you might want to break some of them up between hands just to give the left hand a little something to do. The player will figure that out too a little bit. But yeah. Going back, let's just stick with the harp part for a bit. The harp drops out when the music gets huge, and that is as should be. Here, it's going to be a little bit of work for the player, and it starts to get, I would say, it's wise that by this point the harp just changes into rolled chords and then backs off by letter D. Okay, that's fine. And then, of course, all of this stuff at the beginning is not really like the score of the piano part stuck onto the harp at all, right? So there is a nice counterplay between this part and the actual transcription of the elements of the original piano score. So in all, although this is a much more active harp part than I was generally instructing people to score, it's still perfectly fine, and it's within keeping with the general style of what Ravel probably might have scored himself had he had the time to do this, or the inclination to score this. Ravel didn't score everything for piano, and I think it's good that he didn't, because that left the rest of us some of these minor orchestral works, and some of these minor piano works, and in some cases major piano works like Gaspard de la Nuit, to score for ourselves and to enjoy the whole game of changing a score from piano to orchestra, which Rimsky-Korsakov said was the lowest form of orchestration, and yet, in Ravel's case, it was like some of the highest achievements of orchestration of all time, were changing his piano scores into orchestral music. Okay, so starting off with the beginning, I'm not going to judge on wrong notes. There are a few wrong notes here and there. There are some places where Patrick changes the whole context of the harmony, and I feel, if that is an intentional decision, just like a score or two before, then that's fine. If it was unintentional, just be aware, Patrick, that there are some changes of harmony here that you might want to adjust if you want to be more like the original score. Okay, other than that, I'm not going to bother commenting on it. Okay, so the whole question really is balance, right? And consistency, the consistency of the texture, and the functions of the instruments. So we're starting off with just, ta-da, right? We're using elements traded off back and forth, sort of like hocketing. Interesting choices: clarinet to English horn, back to clarinet, and then this rising up to first oboe and the trill above. Just in terms of my own sense of patience, I feel that the trill goes on for quite a while, right? Now, if there was something to make this trill maybe a little more interesting or sort of colorful, maybe trading off to like a high tremolo on a D flat in the strings, or some other kind of thing, but it just really seems to go on for quite a bit. Nice oboe solo here with the clarinets below it, and interesting choice of the octave with the first violins, and the middle strings an octave below the clarinets, and just the way that this cello and the double bass move along in a complementary way to keep pacing. So I thought that this had really good pacing in it. Now, there was a balance here between the violas and the horns, and it doesn't outlast its welcome, this doubling, right? And it comes back in here to a degree, with some of the same elements going back into the strings. I would almost say that it should even be pianissimo here. Okay, because piano crescendo is going to get you a mezzo forte, like a mezzo forte kind of sound compared to everybody else. So this will stand out quite a bit. But it's nicely controlled, and it's dropped into the background. So generally speaking, the first episode is pretty nice. I like this little roll here, and then when you add the little bits of harp to it, then you really get the cinematic feel, right? Nice. Now moving on here, a bit of tambourine. Actually, let me just leave this page like this. Okay, a bit of tambourine. This might be a little much, but it's all right. This ba-da-dum. You could probably just get away with marking this as, the tempo is so fast that this is nearly a tremolo, right? So you probably could just mark a note like this, quarter note value of this, and you'd get pretty much the same feel there. And the trumpets are okay here. It's sort of adding a little bit of color underneath, and it's nice that you give the violins a rest for a little while. It just sort of gives this woodwind area, some nice color and some nice soul unity, right? They just really hang together in this nice way. You also give the English horn a rest, which I think is wise, so that its color does not continue to predominate, which it will want to do if it's scored for too long. Now, this was kind of interesting. I wonder whether or not this could have been a C rather than a D flat. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to be kind of minimalist about it, you know. But I almost feel like the conflict between the D flat and the C calls too much attention to itself, right? So if you just drop this to C, then problem solved, and the dancing sound above might still be nice and audible. It might be also interesting to double this with just with a line of harp above, just to sort of to bring a little bit more ping, or or if this were like celesta or glockenspiel, might be an interesting sound. Okay, now this is lovely the way this rises into a reimagination of the second half of the melody, right? So I just think that this is really worth looking at for all of our orchestrators, the way that Patrick changes things around here. Now, one critique I might have here is that things get really thick right in here. You want to die away here, and yet you're really laying on the texture in a very heavy way. You've got this line basically essentially doubled, not exactly by the second violin, but essentially you have flutes, oboes, and first and second violins all playing the same pitches here. And I mean, I almost feel like it would be fine to just leave out the oboes here, and to let the flutes and upper strings die away as this descends. I just think would be a better strategy here, even if the flutes are going into their weaker area. Everybody is really trying to be as soft as possible here already, right? So it's just really important to get control of it and not let a more pungent color into there to kind of push at the texture too hard. Now the only problem I have here, besides that, and this is lovely too, the harp. The problem that I have here is that this boom boop boop boom boop boop. There's like no crossover between these two sections. Remember how I was discussing in other scores and in my own lesson on my own score about bridging between these two sections in a seamless way? There is a seam here, and it's very easy to see. Right? So if you had really wanted the transition here to be seamless, you might want to start going pa a bar earlier, or to just gradually introduce those elements until they were more prominent here, right? So that it would just sort of feel as if that idea was just slowly changing into the next one, right? So that there was like dovetailing here as opposed to just suddenly jumping to the next idea. Now, if you wanted the sudden jump, that's fine, but yeah, that wouldn't be the way to do it the way that you have it scored here. Now, bringing in the trombones very, very softly, that's fine, and you've got clarinet 2 octaves higher, so you basically have a triple octave here, and I feel that it's not supported enough by the middle strings, right? And this would be an area where you could easily go divisi with your cellos, give the upper divisi cellos this voice, and then have the violas play an octave higher, or even play a double octave above that divisi, right? And then you could get a complete blending of all of these notes, right, all the way until the change. Yeah. So I felt that part right in there was not really it's going to, the clarinets, I feel the clarinets and the trombones are going to stick out a bit here without more doubling from the middle strings. Okay, now this is neat. A2 flutes descending and trading off into oboes. That's a cool idea. all the while you've got the C trumpets playing an octave below that and starting on the second note of the new theme. Very, very cool idea. Once again, maybe unnecessary doubling here. Maybe it would be easier to have the A2 flutes come in here rather than here. But anyhow, not making a huge amount of difference. But too much doubling of flute and oboe, and you get a bit of a trumpet-like sound. I'm finding. Okay, trading off here from trumpet to clarinet. That is a neat idea. Okay, and of course you're going to get a blended sound here. A bit of a blended sound here by mixing the first violins and this other line. I like the sense of randomness here, though. I will say. I just, I love the figuration in the strings and the way that figuration starts to evolve and develop and get more and more powerful all the way up to D here. Okay, so I don't really have any huge critiques here. There are maybe a few balance problems here and there, but I don't want to get into them too much. I think that they're, like, for instance, I think this is incredibly heavy here. A2 oboes in their lowest octave plus English horn. I think that is a really heavy sound if it's not moderated by strings or something else. Okay, so it's just going to be really, really big. And the same thing here is you've got A2 clarinets with an octave below by bass clarinets. You probably could just do with a single clarinet here, just to keep the feeling a little looser, a little lighter. Because really, you get to forte here, and the forte is going to be pretty big. Okay, all right. Now, the thing that I would say about this here is there might be a sense that you're giving away some of the titanic stature of the upcoming appassionato section. All right. So, and also the height to which your trumpets are playing here is also kind of giving away that sense of towering grandeur. I feel that this should be more like a mezzo forte part, because basically right in here, your pianissimo and to going to piano, you could mark some more of these piano a little bit more systematically, right? This should be piano, that should be piano, that should be piano, right? And then here, crescendo to mezzo forte, and you have a much better balance. If you mark like forte here on this low A, it is going to dominate what's going on here in the double bass. Okay, so it's just a little too strong, a little too fast here. All right, and also piccolo is already getting up to that high E flat. All right, so this is just really, you're really going there very, very quickly because you already have this to contend with. But, in all fairness, it's not so bad of an approach because you pay off almost immediately. Within 8 bars, you are pushing it to its limit, right? And once again, I think that you need to mark this down a bit. Now, props to you for not going up to like high C here or high E flat or whatever, just like really going as high as possible on your trumpet part, because this is going to just be huge. This is going to be as big as it needs to be. All right. So now let's take apart this. This section here. I keep wanting to say the allargando section because that's what I did with my tempo here, but really it's the appassionato section. All right. So we've got octaves here, piccolo, flute, and then an octave lower than that. We've got the second violin, and then so first violin doubling the flutes. Okay, so and then you've got horn. It says I don't know. It's kind of hard to read that there. A2 in grayscale, I guess. So that could have not been in grayscale and just been where we could read it. Right, the conductor is going to want to know that is A2. I don't know why it's grayscale, but it should be, it should be just a piece of type we can all read. Okay, so the horn is going to be an octave below the second violin, so you've got your triple octave here, and it's or quadruple octave, and it's screamingly high. You know what I mean? With piccolo going all the way up to that high A flat and B flat, it's just going to be just really, really high. Okay, now counter melody is quite a bit lower, right? So it doesn't interlock with any of the octaves here. Like there isn't, you don't play a high E flat in between these two pitches. The first one that comes in is below them, right? So it's here on this A2 oboe part right here, which is, you know, by the way, is not doubled by the strings at all, right? And you got the English horn. Once again, this is incredibly pungent. You know what I mean? It's sort of like it's going to be like a very strong smell. not necessarily bad. Like it could be the smell of a very rich curry, or you know, or like masala. It could just be that really strong odor. But it's going to be very, you know, it's going to have some tooth to it. If you have both oboes, English horn, both clarinets, right, all on this same pitch here. Okay, that's going to be really just, it's going to have such an edge to it. Okay, and then below that, you've got your trombones, should be third horn, first trombone, you know, trumpet in C actually is also playing along with this. That's going to be just solid as a rock. Okay, but in that lower octave is where you've also got your violas in tremolo. So, I mean, it does hang together. I'm not saying that any of this is wrong, but there's just so much weight on this octave here with your counter melody. Just a huge amount of weight. Okay, and I'm just wondering if something could not have been spread out, like if the clarinets mightn't have been an octave higher. They could come in easily on high F at fortissimo with no problem at all, for instance. And bass line is just very strong with the with second trombone, bass trombone, and tuba in triple octaves, doubled by cello and double bass. So yeah, I mean it all, you know, clarinets, bass clarinet, and so on. So it all pretty much works. That, you know, the only thing that I would really have wished with this is to have more interlocking of these different lines, right? Which is one of the reasons why the part works so well with Ravel is that the octaves are interlocking all the way down, right? Okay, so but I like this. I like this backing off of the dynamic and the cool down. Now the cool down is once again very strong. Lots of you know A2 doubling on top of doubling. Okay, so it's pretty, you know. So this cello is going to be a lonely soldier down here, accompanied by you know, quite a bit of noise above, right? So, I mean, you had such a huge tutti though that it almost is. It's sort of justified to sort of keep up the pressure, right? But I would want a more backed off sound, like down to mezzo piano here in the winds, before I threw in this harp line, because I don't feel that it's going to be all that prominent, right? Because with this powerful of strings and winds, I think this is going to get lost. All right. And then, you know, everything else pretty much works. I didn't have that many comments about the rest. I think this is lovely. You know, just some of the randomness and cloudiness of some of the textures that you're heading for here. Yeah. And adding some solo violin in here. That's all very charming. And then just to keep this in the strings with the harp behind it, that's lovely, with just a little bit of reinforcement by horn at the beginning. And this is neat. And this is so anti dovetailing. You know, it's like getting away from the idea of dovetailing and just picking up and stepping on each other's feet all the way down. I think that's lovely. Okay, and then just a cascade downward on harp. and kind of almost wondering whether or not this could not have been expressed as a glissando, right? C sharp and D flat could play the same note, all right? And then, yeah, but then we run into, there are a lot of dominant sevenths and seventh chord shapes that can be just expressed enharmonically, but not all, right? And especially when you get into white keys, like, where do you put, in this case, like, where do you put, you've got your A, right, but where do you put your B? What is B tuned to, right? It's just not going to be able to find a place in this particular voicing. So anyway, but otherwise, nicely scored. Love this little bit of horn in here, and dropped down by clarinets. It all pretty much makes lovely sense. Okay, so I've seen your scoring before, Patrick, from our earlier challenges, and just really, I've always been impressed by your sense of craft and your imagination and everything else. And just really am enjoying seeing your work again, and I feel that you should just try to pursue this as much as you possibly can, because you've got a gift for it, right? And whether you're working professionally yet or not, I think that, yeah, just don't give up. Just keep plugging away at it. Try to get some performances and some, maybe some of your own original stuff performed and published, and so on and so forth. Just, and I mean, I wish that for everybody. I've known Patrick for a long, long time, and know a few personal details, and just really feel that it's just really important to acknowledge just the excellence of the score and the progress that I've been seeing for several years now. So thank you so much for sharing this, and just really enjoyed it. And now we're really getting into the final few scores. 3 more to go. I can't wait to see what is up next. Let's go check it out.